In the last few years, quinoa has gone from being nowhere to being everywhere. It's the latest food trend here in the United States. It's incredibly healthy and versatile, and has even been called a superfood. Because of all this new attention, the demand for the crop has skyrocketed around the world. The United Nations even declared 2013 to be the International Year of the Quinoa. But is this sudden increase in demand for quinoa really all that great? Let's find out. Quinoa was first grown in Ecuador, Bolivia, Colombia, and Peru. The earliest record of human consumption dates back 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. Quinoa was a staple of ancient South American civilizations, such as the Incas, but today it is a popular food due to its superfood status. On average, 3.5 ounces of cooked quinoa has 14 grams of protein, which makes it one of the highest sources of protein amongst grains. Quinoa also includes high amounts of calcium and dietary fiber, and is gluten-free. Let's turn to modern quinoa production. The Andean region of South America was the original source of quinoa, and today it still is. In fact, these countries accounted for 80% of global quinoa production in 2011, which is a huge increase from 46% in 2001, according to this graph from the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, FAO, and the World Bank. As you can see, the world quickly embraced trendy quinoa. In 2001, according to this graph made by the World Bank, the only real demander for quinoa was the EU. Now, look at 2011. It's mind-blowing how the labeling of a food as trendy and as a superfood can increase demand remarkably. From 2001 to 2011, the demand for quinoa increased about 18 times. The United Nations dubbed 2013 to be the International Year of the Quinoa, to recognize quinoa's abilities to aid food-insecure countries. But by doing so, the producing countries are becoming more and more food-insecure themselves. Let's look at prices of quinoa in producing countries over the last 10 years. There has been a huge increase in prices since 2001, and while prices look like they are leveling off at prices that are almost 3 times as high. For a crop that is a dietary staple in Peru, Bolivia, and other South American countries, these prices are just too high, and soon quinoa will become too expensive for local purchasing.
To look at quinoa as a trendy food, let's first look at kale as an example. In the past decade or so, kale has become very popular due to its health benefits and because it's so easy to grow. Kale fits right into the local produce fad, with people flocking to local farmers markets to buy it, especially after famous health professionals like Dr. Oz declared it a superfood. Quinoa also has many health benefits, but it is the opposite of kale in that almost all of the quinoa consumed in the U.S. is grown in Chile, Bolivia, Peru, and Ecuador. Quinoa has become increasingly popular. 6 years ago, it was $1.50 a pound, and today it can go for up to $8 a pound. This is good for farmers because they're making more money, but it's a double-edged sword. Many farmers are now having to buy outsourced, less nutritional food because it's cheaper. There have been efforts to grow quinoa in the U.S. in the Pacific Northwest region, where the climate is the most similar to South American countries where quinoa is grown now.
The question is, what can we do to help the problem with quinoa demand and make it affordable to consumers in both South and North America? We can grow it here in North America. However, there are some difficulties with growing quinoa. It is extremely heat sensitive. Anything above 95 degrees can completely demolish the plant. Rain is also an obstacle. If rain comes during the autumn harvest, it can ruin the crunch because the seeds will sprout too quickly. Next, saponin, which is the natural layer of compounds that protect the seed from pests, but is inedible to consumers, causes a problem. Very specific cleaning systems, like they have in South America, would have to be used in order to produce the crop successfully. The places where we can grow it in North America are limited, but they do exist. For instance, Rocky Mountains, much of Canada, and also the Pacific Northwest are possibilities. This plant is adaptable, and we should take advantage of that. 1 pound of quinoa from Whole Foods costs anywhere between $5 and $10. If we produced it in North America, we would save money on importation costs. It is relatively cheap to produce, and it would lower the cost for both U.S. and South American consumers. The farms that grow it in Colorado now don't have enough resources to meet the demand. So ideally, they could widely publicize their growing model so that others could adopt it. In a smaller scale, college students, farmers, and educators should share their knowledge about this issue through social media outlets such as Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram. If individuals in those Northwest regions could begin learning how to grow quinoa, eventually the effort could become more expansive.